Hello. We are once again doing a lecture video. I did so good. Hello Jada and Madison. They watch it and Kim. And really just my fifth period class. And if you're in sixth period, hello. Alright, so cellular communication is how a signal tells a cell to respond in a certain manner. This is something that happens across all organisms, archaeobacteria, eukaryotic organisms, the whole shebang. And it shows like this very highly ordered biological organization and response. Okay, so it's super cool, super important. And on top of that, um, it is something that shows like a common ancestry, which is more like a evolution type concept, which we'll get to eventually. But for now, we're just talking about it in regards to what is it, what does it do. Okay, so cell to cell communication, again, is the process by which cells are communicating. It is the fact that we can get an entire organism, if we look at it beyond just a single cell, we can get an entire organism to respond to a certain stimuli in a certain way. And so this is this highly ordered, signal, how it responds, the timing, the coordination, the way that like a single organism can have one signal generate multiple responses throughout. So super complex process. I'm gonna try and simplify it for you. This happens also in single-celled organisms. The two single-celled organisms are quorum sensing and chemotaxis. We're not going to talk about those as much, um, just because this is like it's a little bit easier to see the whole process in eukaryotes. So we're not really going to talk about the bacteria, but just to give you an idea of what those are, quorum sensing is this small quantity of bacteria is not going to affect the host. It's not going to be able to beat a host up. It's not going to be able to like have an actual infection or harm a host in any way. So they'll sit here with this chemical signal around them that is basically the hold signal. We're going to hang here. We're going to multiply. And as cell density increases, the chemicals around it become stronger. And so as the signal on the outside increases, they start to recognize, hey, our quantity is building up. And then last but not least, we've got plenty and we are now in attack mode. So that's going to mean the host is getting beat up. And it's something that like how bacteria actually create illness. They don't want to attack with just one. They want to make sure they have multiplied. Another one is bacteria have directed like movement towards positive chemical stimuli, and they will move directly away from negative chemical stimuli. Like this is something that's not good for me. I need to swim away from it. So that's called chemotaxis. Okay, so that was two little examples for prokaryotes. We're going to kind of move into eukaryotes, and let's talk about direct contact versus cell signaling. So cells can talk by touching each other, direct cell contact. They can also communicate over short distances. Neurotransmitters is our big eukaryotic example there. We just talked about quorum sensing for bacteria. And then long distance signaling, which is all of your endocrine system. So it's like anything that enters your bloodstream and sends a signal via long distances. And the responses of long distance signaling are very cool, very complex, because a single signal can actually create and generate multiple responses across the body. So like a uh, adrenaline rush is really like a lot of different things have to happen, but it's the same signal. So my heart rate's going to increase, my muscles are going to generate more ATP. Like you get that adrenaline response based off of one signal, but it's making all the different cells differentiate in different ways. So let's talk about direct contact. Two purposes. I'm going to stop before I show you any of the other stuff. Two purposes of direct cell-to-cell contact is one, gap junctions. You can see the picture of the gap junctions here. This is so molecules can move freely in between. I think on your test they ask you about the plasmodesmata, and that has the same function as any cell junction. We're going to create these little holes in the cell wall, and we're going to pass molecules back and forth. This is how organisms create tissues that are all on the same page and functioning together. Versus cell-to-cell recognition, this is on the outside of a cell. These two cells are different. They still need to work together. They still need to operate in conjunction with each other. And obviously they are touching, but they need to have different functions. And so to recognize that, they're going to be able to attach in some way and recognize each other. So, again, the whole point of this direct contact is to create this harmonious organism. Like these cells are working together. These cells are working separately, but they have to make sure that the two things that they're doing contribute to the overall organism. So we talked about gap junctions. Here you can see there are gaps. There's a tight junction. Basically, they're sharing a cell membrane. And then there's desmosomes, which is like a stitching that holds the cell membranes together. And then in plants, because they have this extra structure, their cell wall, we just have a secondary plasmodesmata, which is a hole in the cell wall to be able to let those molecules flow freely. And then there's also cell-to-cell recognition. If we remember from our cell membrane unit, this structure right here is responsible for helping us get cell-to-cell recognition. These are glycoproteins or glycolipids. They're carbohydrate chains that are like name tags for cells. Hey, I do this. This is my job. All right. So immune cell interaction. That's the cell-to-cell recognition. That's one example. And then the plasmodesmata is another example. So when we talk about short distances, the one you're going to want to hone in on is the neurotransmitter. We learn it a lot more at a different date. But just having a good general idea of like what it means to have a short distance signaling. Basically, the cells don't actually touch, but a signal has to come a very short distance to get from one cell to the next. So if you can look at it here in this local signaling, there are cells like this that are like a local regulator. These are like secretory cells. They're going to shoot out something like a small hormone right around them. One of the ones we like to use is like the MPF, mitosis promoting factor. If you get a cut on your finger, we want to localize that. We don't want to send a signal all throughout our body and make mitosis happen everywhere, but we do want to repair the cut on our finger. So a cell very close to that cut will send out a signal, hey, we need to go through mitosis, create more cells, and fill in the cut. This is the local regulator. These are the ligands that they're sending out. In the example that I just provided, that's MPF, the mitosis promoting factor. And then the target cells are the ones that are going to respond by initiating mitosis and doing cellular division. Here's a neurotransmitter. This is a neuron. It's going to release a neurotransmitter. That's the signal that's going to shoot across the cell into a target cell, which is usually another neuron. So it's going to pop fire that. Those ligands, those neurotransmitters, they're going to hit this cell and then make it respond by continuing the signal and stimulating the target cell to continue the signal. And then the last one, we talked about long distance signaling. This is all of your endocrine system. So endocrine cells, they don't necessarily have to be spread out throughout the body. The blood vessel is actually going to be what moves those signals for it. And so endocrine cells, it can be any of those glands. So you got your adrenal gland, your pituitary gland, all of those things are creating hormones and secreting hormones, and those hormones are going to enter your bloodstream, and then they can virtually reach every part of your body and create the desired responses in those specific places. So that's our long distance signaling. Again, the endocrine is your big one for that. So endocrine, pancreas, neuronal, contact dependent. Take a second, see if you can figure out if that's direct, short, or long distance, because this is a good visual of all three of those types. Okay, now, what we're also going to talk about is the signal transduction pathway. So it's not enough just to understand they have a cell, there is a signal, and then it responds to that signal. Let's talk about the steps involved. So chemical signals are going to initiate this, and what those chemical signals are going to do is they're going to allow cells to communicate across these different distances. So let's look. The signal transduction pathway is what we're talking about. It has 3 major steps to it. There's like a million different examples of the signal transduction pathway. I can't physically teach all of them to you, so you're just going to get the what are these 3 big ideas. The first one is reception. So in reception, a signal binds to a receptor protein, and that receptor protein is going to do some sort of conformation, which means it just changes. It changes its shape, and that's all on the cell surface. It's never going to actually enter the cell. So transduction is next. In transduction, there's this relay of secondary messengers, and it's usually a bunch of kinases that just go pop, 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 and send the signal across. And then last but not least, those secondary messengers are going to cause a response within the cell. So here's the big overview. Reception, this stays on the outside. This is a ligand. This is a receptor protein. These are a series of kinases sending secondary messengers. The secondary messengers are then going to go cause a cellular response. This is usually an activation of transcription factors. So that's pretty cool. So again, this is the first stage, reception. It's all about signal binding. A signal binds and it recognizes a specific chemical messenger, and the ligand, which is the signal, binds to that receptor protein. That's basically the big picture there. Okay. In transduction, this is a lot of steps. That receptor protein, after it conforms, it activates these things called kinases, and they're just enzymes that transfer phosphate groups. So they're moving the signal along, amplifying the signal. Now, when we want to turn this off, we can do a couple different things. We can remove the initial ligand, the signal, or we can get these things called phosphatases. They're basically enzymes that pull off those phosphate groups and stop those signals. So these secondary messengers are moving, okay, and they're all of the internal intracellular signals moving from kinase to kinase. Once again, based off of the different kinases that are in there, we can actually get one signal to create a lot of different responses. And so that's what it was talking about throughout the body is even though it's one receptor protein for a specific signal, the kinases on the inside relay a different response depending on the cell that it is in. And the response, we're going to activate transcription factors. So that's basically the rundown for the different cell communication types: direct, short and long distance signaling, and then basically what happens in the signal transduction pathway. What you're going to want to make sure you know how to do is I would look at a bunch of different examples, make sure you can identify the different parts. The biggest and the hardest thing is going to be understanding errors in any of this process. So for instance, if we don't have a growth factor, there's never going to be a signal bind, so this will never happen, and then our response won't actually occur. So making sure it's specific to the actual scenario, that's going to be your big thing, is understanding that. But hopefully that was helpful. I know it was short and rushed, but you guys are going to do great on your test. Hopefully you watch this video. Bye.